Hey, how you doing? Welcome back. We're going to create a one-page website. Now, if you want more pages, don't worry. The theory we learn here today, you can apply to loads more pages. And even though it's a one-page website, we will have a scroll effect and we will show you how to do a menu because it's something you might want to consider when you're looking at your website on a mobile. So don't worry, we're going to go through lots of tricks here today. We're using WordPress. Much better than using Wix or Squarespace or other website builders where you're stuck within a infrastructure. There are so many developers and support out there for WordPress. I strongly recommend it. And we're using Elementor Pro, the world's best page builder. You can do what we're going to do today with Elementor free with some additional free plugins, so don't worry about that. But if you want to get the best out of Elementor and reduce the amount of plugins you have, I strongly recommend you go for Elementor Pro, and you can get a license over here. And we got a link as well, but I'm not forcing you to do anything. Now, we have got other videos where we go through the settings for plugins, for WordPress, for your media library and things like that. I will put a link in there. Please do go and watch that video because it will help you out a lot. But let's just jump straight into creating a page. If I go over to WordPress, we're going to click on Pages and we're going to click Add New. Now this is the normal WordPress window, or also known as Gutenberg in a way, where the block builder. We're not going to do anything here except give it a title and then click Edit with Elementor. So I'm going to call this Vulkan Page, like that. And then I'm going to click Edit with Elementor. I'm keeping it really simple here, okay? And I'm not going to waste too much time with talking too much, but getting straight onto it. We jump into a page. This page is a website that I use for testing, so ignore everything you see here. Because it's a one-page website, I'm going to go to Settings and I'm going to say hide the title, which you would do anyway. And I'm going to make this an Elementor Canvas page. Elementor Canvas basically means that if there was any preset header or footer, we've completely got rid of it, okay? And that is something I would recommend you doing if you've got a one-page website. Also, I better mention we are using the Hello theme as well. So when you load up WordPress, you'll have heard of Ocean WP, Astra, Cadence, Blocksy, all these other themes and templates out there. Hello for me is the simplest one to use without any bloat because I'm building everything with Elementor anyway, so I don't need to use anything but Hello. But let's not focus on that. We have a page. What we're going to do is we're going to add in a header, but it's not going to be a header template. It's just going to be a header that sits on the page and is always going to be present at the top. We're going to click the plus sign and we are going to create a section. My section is going to have two columns. Your section is your house. Your columns are your rooms. And inside your rooms, you will put your content, your furniture, your bed, your sofa, your TV. We're going to go for two columns, okay? And this section, I am going to say this is a full width. So it's going to stretch across the full width of the screen, no matter how big the screen is. It is going to have no gap. If you were, let me explain that a bit better. If you were to go for, say, a wide gap, and it's not working yet because there's no content in there, but a wide gap means you're adding tons of insulation before you get to the room. So you've got the house, insulation, room. By having no gap, my rooms are right up against the borders of the house because I like to define how things sit once I've started placing things in. Now, in terms of height, I'm going to set this to be a minimum height of 0. So the height will be determined by the contents. Or you might say, I want this to be 364. No matter how many contents are in there, it is always going to be 364 pixels in height. I'm going to leave that as 0 for now. I'm going to set the column position to be middle. So if I had a big section and I stick top, everything goes to the top. By doing middle, everything is in the middle aligned of the section. Let's drop in an image. And if you do want much more in-depth tutorials on Elementor, like that goes into a lot more in-depth in placements and everything, I have got site tutorials. Go look at the playlist. I've dragged in an image. I'm going to click over here and I'm going to pick this image here. This image is 300 by 50 pixels. It's only 10 KB. I'm going to set it to full. Even though it is, I want it to be a slightly smaller size, by saying full, you get the full resolution. A mistake some people make is they pick thumbnail or medium. That affects your resolution. So go for full. I'm going to have it on a left aligned, and I'm going to go to style. And I'm now going to put my width and max width onto pixel. And I'm going to set this to be about, I think 150 is too small. I'll go with 200. And I'm also going to set my max width to be 200. Now, why do you do both of them? If you don't do the max width, as your screen grows, the logo will also grow, which is fine if that's the effect you want. But sometimes the logo will grow so much it looks wrong compared to everything else on your page, so bear that in mind. I'm now going to go to the middle of the section because I've got two columns. I'm going to drag this just to be over there. So I've got a bit more space now on that column over there. This column is where we're eventually going to add in our menu system. But we're not going to do that yet. We're going to do that later on. First thing I'm going to do to my section is go to the style and give it a background type. And rather than putting in an image or a gradient, I'm just going to put a white color. If you don't put in a color, your background will actually be transparent. Even though it looks white to you at the moment, it is transparent, which we don't want. Remember though, we are going to drop a menu in here later on. The second thing I'm going to do though is go to advanced, and I'm going to now decide, well, I'm not going to change the margin. So if I was to do something like this, 100, there is empty space here now above. The section starts 100 pixels away from the top or the section above. We're going to leave that as 0. What I will do though is give a little bit of padding. So I'm going to go to my right and my left and give 15. And from the top, I'm going to go with about 2 and 2. I'm being very particular about my placement. By starting to add in margins or paddings now, it helps you out later on. Believe me, it will help you out, because what you can then do is, rather than duplicating effort, you're starting to define your sections, and I think that is important, especially when you get to mobile view. That will become clear in a moment. Now, the third thing we're going to do is, while we're on advanced, we're going to go to motion effects down here, and I'm going to say sticky top, and that is it. Okay, and it will be like that on the desktop, the tablet, and the mobile. That now means that no matter how much we scroll up and down, that header will always be at the top. If you don't want it to be at the top and you want it to disappear or reappear or however you want to do it, don't have it as a sticky. But we're going to have it as a sticky. Right, now let's get on to the next section. So I'm going to go down here and I'm now going to pick another section with 2 columns. This section, though, is going to be a little bit different. This is going to be a box. I'm going to do 1000, okay? That now means that no matter how big the screen is, everything sits within a 1000 pixel like frame. So you could have, like, if you've got a small Surface Pro like tablet computer, it will look fine. If you've got a big 42-inch screen, it will look fine. But if you set your boxed width to be 1500 pixels, because your screen size at home is a 22-inch monitor, great. But when someone views that on a Surface Pro or an iPad or something like that, if you don't take account of the size of screens, it won't look right. So have a think. I tend to go with between 1300 or 1200, usually when I'm designing websites, unless the client who I feel like it needs to be full width because of the scale of the imagery or the wording. But have a think about that. So we've got 2 columns. I'm going to set this again to be no gap column. Now, for the minimum height, I am again going to set this to be 0, because I'm going to add in some padding into here to bulk this out. Right. What I'm going to now do is over here, I'm going to drop in a image onto column 2. Just drag and drop. This is the beauty about Elementor. And I'm going to pick this image here. There we go. We have an image. Now, if I was to hit this chevron over here, we can now see how the website's looking. Now, at the moment, I only did 2 pixels here. Now, that is looking ultra tight. Let's just go back up over here to our section, and I think we need to increase that to be 5 and, whoops, not 55, in fact. And we'll go 5 there. Okay, let's now view it again. Still a bit close to the top, but I think we can get away with that. This is just a test website we're doing, and we have an image over here. I could, if I want, go over to this image, click it, go to advanced, go to motion effect, and have an entrance come in where it fades in from the right. So when you load the page up, this moves in from the right. And I think in some way, moving in from the right as a motion effect works quite well on this because of the kick effect we've got going on there. Right, so we're now going to click onto this column. Well, sorry, we're going to go back to the section. we now have to, this is the reason why I didn't do a minimum height, because I'm going to drop an image in and that's actually going to force the height to be a certain way anyway. This image is a little bit too big for my liking, so we click on the image, we go to style, and I'm now going to go for the pixel width, and I'm going to say 400, and we're going to go with 400 as well there. So the maximum, no matter how big the screen, will always be 400. Okay. Now we're going to drop in some text. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to drop in a heading. And I'm going to make sure it's left aligned. You probably might have it as a header 1 or a header 2. I'm just going to call this lorem ipsum. Now I'm not going to start putting in actual text here, okay? This is just a template that we're building so we can get through it quite quickly. But you would put in your key headline maybe, like ninja skills, or you might say something like kick the weight, or I can't think of anything now, but kick the habit, stuff like that. Think of something that's kind of quite relative to what you're trying to do about your business. Why should people come and visit you? It's got to kind of relate to your keywords and what is the benefit of why people have come to your website. Helps if your headline solves a problem. We will do this. We will help you with X, Y, Z. Don't put stuff like, we will make you a millionaire. I hate stuff like that, but try and be true and honest to your business. Okay, we're going to go to style. I'm going to change this text color to just be like, in fact, no, we won't go with that. We'll go with the red color so it kind of fits with the theme there. Okay, so we've got a bit of a strong color going on there. Typography, I'm just going to stick to Roboto for now. Now, I would use REM for your fonts, okay? It's easy to use Pixel, but always use REM because it's a little bit better in terms of responsiveness. I'm going to give that a 3, and in terms of weighting, we'll put that as 500. Remember, there's so much more we can do with typography if we really wanted in terms of transforming it so it's all uppercase, or I prefer just normal sometimes. Also, the letter spacing and things like that. I'm just going to leave that all out. You can play around with that. You can even do word spacing as well. So you don't have to do just the lettering. You can do word spacing. Don't forget that feature is there. We're going to do much more to that. I'm actually going to duplicate what we have here at the moment. And I'm going to now change the style of this to be a darker color. And I'm now going to make the weighting of this be 400. And I'm going to drop this to be about 2. 2.5 is a bit too big. We'll go with 2 there. This is where you might have a subheading, right? In fact, I'm going to type over here, subheading like that. And then what we're going to do is now drop in a little bit of text. You don't have to have text, by the way. Please remember this. You don't have to. You can just have a header and a subheader, or just a header. Don't feel forced into doing something if you don't have the content, or it just doesn't make sense to do. So we're going to have a bit of text in there. That's a little bit too long for my liking. We'll go with something like that, 3 lines. We'll go with style. We're going to leave it as the black color. In fact, I would be tempted to just drop the color to be a bit gray, so it's not full on in your face. It's just a little bit lighter. We go to typography, have it as REM, and I'm going to set this to be 1.5 is probably too big. We'll go with 1. 1.1. 1. We'll go with 1. Okay, 1.1 was starting to look a bit. Sometimes I go for 1.05 as well. We'll go with 1. Go with 1 for now. Okay. Again, remember you can change the sizing of this. So I'm going to do the letter height. It's on EM1, and I'm going to increase this to be about 1.2. 1.8. We'll go with 1.8 there. Now, at the moment, everything here is, in my opinion, a little bit close together. It's automatically going to be 20 pixels. And if you click on the column and you go to the edit column, over it says widget space. And I've set that to 0 space. If you delete it, it's going to be 20. If I type in 20, it is still 20. Okay, so that's what it is. But if you feel like this is now a little bit too close to the header or the subheader or whatever, I click on the header and I'm going to say, give me about 20 pixels more spacing from the header and the subheader. And in terms of the word, and now I'm not too worried about that because I don't mind the text being close to the subheader, but I want the subheader to be a little bit away from the main header. Now I am going to add in an extra effect here. If I go to the header and I go to advanced and I go down to border, I'm going to say give me a solid border, but I only want it across the bottom. So I click solid, and when I click this to zero it all out. And then on the bottom, I'm going to say 2, like that. And I'm going to say make it the same red color, like that, okay, as what we had above. Now, as soon as I do that, suddenly my brain starts to go thinking and go, you know what? What if I make this border about 5 pixels? No, 4 pixels. And this time, instead of the wording being red, I'm going to change it now to be dark black, like that. Because I'm now thinking about the effect. And this is the beauty about a lot of the things you do in Elementor and the way you do page building and drag and drop. You might have a style guide and something you're trying to achieve, but you can start to modify it on the fly when you start to see the visuals and go, that's not looking so great now. Now that line is right up against the wording in terms of the P there, and I don't like that. So we're going to go to advanced, and I'm now going to go to the padding. Now the padding for this at the moment is set to 0. But if I was to increase the bottom, well, let me show you what happens if I do the margin. Nothing. All it's doing is pushing the header and the subheader farther apart. Let's leave that as 0. But if I do the padding, that is now within that header. So now the border of that, it's like containing extra insulation into the room. So it's like when you got layers of wallpaper over one another because you couldn't be bothered to scrape it off. You're just adding layers in. So now we've added in an extra layer there. And I think we could go with about 16. That looks better to me. The one thing I'm not liking is the fact that this red line goes all the way across. I prefer it if it kind of stopped at the point the header did. Well, this is dead easy to do. You click on the header with the blue pencil for that. We go to positioning. So we're in the advanced tab. You go to positioning and we set the width to be custom. And as soon as we do that, that happens. Now, when you do that though, it will mess up a little bit in terms of the spacing there. So look, can you see that? So we're going to click over here and I'm now just going to increase the margin over here. So we're going to go with about 40 like that. Let's now view how that looks. So we have a title, a logo at the top, we've got some wording, and we've got this image coming in here, which will appear as it flies in. The spacing between column 1 and column 2 are a little bit too close. You might say, well, there is some spacing here, but if I'm honest, it still feels a bit close. So I'm going to go to column 1. I'm going to go to advanced, and this is now just for column 1. I am going to say the right margin. We're going to go with 60. Let's now update that and view how this looks now. That's a little bit better. We now have a little bit of breathing space. You could be argued into saying that, well, the space over here, it looks like it's moved over to the left quite a bit. Let's sort that out. Let's go to our image. Let's put it on the right-hand side. Now, maybe we didn't need to do the margin. Okay, and I'm just showing you how you can set things up, and when you start to position it, the way it looks could change. The key thing is the borders of these images are 1,000 pixels, okay? The 1,000 is somewhere around here, to be honest, because this all comes out a bit. And your 1,000, that's 1,000 pixels. But what we now have, and I hope you can see this, is text headers, image, everything is centralized into the middle at the moment, and it looks fine. Before we move on to the next section, I would recommend that you go into responsive mode. So down here you have responsive mode, you click that, check it out in tablet, check it out in mobile. I'm going to go to mobile. I'm going to set the width of this to be 378. And this is now where you're going to start to see how things look. Don't worry about the header. We're going to come back to that at the end when we do our menu structure. But here we have column 1 and column 2. So whereas in the desktop, column 1, column 2, it looked fine. In the mobile, it goes column 1, column 2, right? This happens. If you have 3 columns, my finger's right, you've got 3 columns, column 1, 2, and 3. When you move to mobile, this will happen 1, 2, 3. However, you can change things. So you have columns 1 and 2 and column 3 like that. You can change it by messing around with the width of it. So if I was to set the width of column 1, if I click on the column and go to layout and set this to be 50, like that, and set column 2 to also be 50, like this, I will now have them side by side, but it looks ridiculously wrong because of the amount of content in there. So don't make your columns all fit the same order again unless it makes absolute visual aesthetic sense. Here it definitely doesn't. So column 1 I'm going to set to be 100%. So it's the full width. And the same with column 2. Again, 100. Now column 1, let's just focus on column 1, sorry. Column 1 is right up against the borders at the moment. So we're going to change that. Let's go to our section first. And I'm going to go to advanced and I'm going to say I want there to be 15 padding on the left and right. I don't care what content is in there. When you go to mobile, you will always have 15 pixels on the left and right, spacing away, basically here and here. The reason for that is so that things aren't squashed up to the side, because I hate that. The second thing we're going to do then is go to column 1 within section 1. We're going to go to advanced and I'm going to say I'm going to just undo, I took away the 60 pixels. So on the desktop, we had 60 pixels on the right. By hitting the link button, I've reset it, so that's now disappeared. For the mobile, because look, it's over here, mobile. The desktop, I'll prove it to you, I've still got it. See that? Let's go back to mobile. Let's put it to 378. We still have the padding and we now have 0 margin. Fantastic. I'm now going to add in about 50 pixels from the top, like so. So it's not completely up at the top now, the header. The header, though, is still a little bit big now because it's maintained the sizing. Let's go to typography. Let's go to REM and let's change it to be, I would say, let's go with 2.2. Because sometimes your header, you want it to be powerful. But what looked great on a desktop, you don't want to have the same size on the mobile because it will overspill onto multiple lines or just not have the same effect. Let's now go to the subheader. That was a typography of 2. I think we can get away with about 1.5 now. And when we go down to the text, believe it or not, the text won't really need to be changed. And I'll show you why. If I put that as a 1, if you drop it to 0.9, now it's looking a bit ridiculous. Text you can get away with keeping the same size, or you might drop it from like 1.2 to 1.15. Sometimes I do that, so I'm doing the second decimal place, but have an adjustment of it and have a think. Now column 2, the image is now right below the screen, which is not kind of the best effect I really want. Let's go to style, let's go to the column first, and there is no margin or padding, so we don't need to worry about that. Let's now click on the image. If I go to, let's just make sure the image was a full resolution for starters, which it should have been. Go to style, and now instead of it being 400 pixels, I'm going to drop this to be about, there we go. So I can now see that 228 works pretty well. And we're going to do 228 for the maximum as well. Let's go to content, the alignment. So I have a symbol there, so the desktop alignment will be different to the mobile alignment. This is a test page, by the way. Don't anyone look at this and go, oh, this is really, really ugly. Please don't worry about that, okay? This is just a test we're showing you off here at the moment. So I've got my headers, subheader, and text, and I have my image, okay? That is now looking okay for the mobile. And by me setting my section to have 1515, when I come to do section 2, which is going to be a direct copy of this, by the way, and then I'm going to rejig it, I've already set my margins in there for it. So let's go to desktop. Let's now view this again. It's looking okay. Let's now do section 2. I'm going to duplicate this section like that. Literally like that. Okay, nothing fantastical going on there. Just all I've done is duplicate it and it's got exactly the same content. I'm going to pick up section 2 or column 2 and I'm going to drag it to sit in front of column 1 like that. So column 2 has become column 1 and column 1 has become column 2. I'm just going to click over here and make this to be central now, the image. Now for the text we have over here, I'm actually now going to get rid of that header. We don't need to have that header now anymore. And I'm going to go to layout and I'm now going to set, no, we'll leave that as middle. I was going to say we could make this top. So now the text goes to the top and it starts at the top. The image is already kind of at the top anyway. So we could go with something like that. When we do that, now if I had a bit more text, it kind of maybe doesn't look so bad. I still feel like it doesn't look great when you do that. but we're just doing a test website here, okay? The text we have over here is a little bit close to the top, even though we got some white over here. So I'm going to go to my section, go to advanced, and I'm going to say, give me, sorry, not the margin, the padding. I'm going to say, give me 50. So even though we're at the top, I've added in some insulation along the top there. Again, it's just something that can work quite well. What I'm also going to do is go to this section, go to the background type, and I'm going to give this a very pale grey colour, which is F3, F3, F3. Now, as soon as I do that, my image there shows the white background because it came over without a transparent background. So if you're going to do that and you want the images to blend with the background, make sure that when you get them from Photoshop, Canva, or wherever you do your images, make sure you have a transparent background. But we were going to change this image anyway. So I'm going to click over here and I'm going to pick this image here of this person doing something like that. I'm actually going to get rid of the motion effect because it was fine at the top, but I don't want it anymore. I don't want any entrance animation. I'm going to go to the style of this image and I'm going to give it a border radius of 25. Can you see that? If I'd gone for 250. Okay, so you can modify the size of that. And I'm also going to give it a bit of a box shadow, just a tiny bit like that. You can mess around with the settings of this, okay? So if you want to have like, you know, however you want the shadow to look, okay? I'll let you mess around with that. And you can also change the color as well if you so wanted. Now, you can clearly see, if I just show you here, that image, sorry, it's probably better like that. That image is right against the bottom of that section. Because we've given this 50 padding at the top, but let's do it at the bottom as well. Why not? Now remember, because we copied or duplicated this section, the layout is the same, boxed, 1000, no gap, minimum height 0, and it's at the top. When we then go to mobile, okay, this section has got the 15 on the padding on the left and right. Don't worry about this image, we're going to come back and play with it. So now we have our image and we have our text. However, the image is looking very dominant and big, isn't it, on the website? This column is 50-50%. If I go to the section, I click layout, you'll see here the structure is 50-50. You could start to click some of these if you want to modify the sizing. I would actually prefer that I just like to pick it up and I do like that. However, when I start to do this, okay, so I'm making column 2 bigger, it's overlapping. And you're probably thinking, why is it overlapping? Well, that's because if I go to this image over here, this image is set to 400 pixel. So no matter how big column 1 or column 2 are, that is always going to be 400 pixel. This is where I might now want to change the sizing. So I'm now going to say, make this 100%. This is now 100% of column 1. So if I was to now drag this to the left, it will shrink in line with how big it is. So again, this is where you can have a think about your sizing. Or rather than doing that, I like to be in control of what I'm doing. So I'm now going to change it from 400 pixel to be 250 pixel, like that. So it's an image, but it's not a massively bold, big, bulky image that's taking up your eye line. Now when we do that, the padding I had over here for this column is looking a little bit incorrect. And this is where I might now say, okay, let's go over to here, to this header, and I'm going to get rid of the top margin like that. That's now looking a little bit better. And this is where you do want to have a play now with what you're doing. Now I'm going to go to column 2, and I'm going to say that the vertical alignment for this is in the middle, and I'm going to make sure that this one is in the middle as well. Now you can see there's a bit of a gap there, and there's a little bit of a gap down there at the top, but you can play around with your margins and your padding to get it to look exactly how you want. But what we have now is we have a section with an image and an image like that. The spacing here really is ridiculously bad, in my opinion. So I'm going to click on the section and I'm going to say, give me about 60 more spacing from the top there. For this section here, I would say, give me 100 and 100 like that. Okay. So I've said, give me spacing from the section above and give me 100 pixels padding at the inside of that section. So we have section 1 and we have section 2. Now, can you see where we had the sticky header? When I scroll up, it hides what we had before. And that's kind of the beauty of what you really want to be achieving. You know, that's why we have a sticky header. We will come back to the sticky header, though, okay? So don't worry about that. Please don't say, there's not much going on there. What was the point of it? We will do more. We're now going to go to mobile view, and we're going to make it a 378, okay? Now, when I scroll and look at this, column 1, which has got the image in, is up against the section. So just whatever you did on a desktop, you just got to mess around a little bit with the mobile. Don't do it and think, oh, my mobile will be fine. That's not how responsive mode works, okay? You've got to think about it a bit more. I'm going to leave the image that size, but I'm going to go to the section, and I'm now going to set this to have about, I think we need to do a margin. So we'll do about 50 from the top, and I'm going to do 50 over here as well. In fact, we'll do more than 50. We need to go with about 70. Yeah, there we go. So 50 margin from the top, and we're going to have 70 padding at the bottom, and I might as well do, top. We might as well do some padding as well. So there we have the image. We now got column 2 of section 1. Let's go over here, and I'm going to increase this to be 70 from the image above. Now, the text has, because we duplicated and we set different sizes for the desktop and the mobile, it has maintained that. And that is why it's so important that you do it right at the start, and then you kind of duplicate and reuse content and sections, because it saves you having to do loads of hard work. So now we have our section 2 kind of done. Right, let's move on to our next section. We might as well just duplicate this. So when we duplicate, we get this going on. I'm now going to go over here, and I'm going to get rid of the spacing from here. So section 3 follows on from section 2. So we've got rid of all the content, okay? The paddings will still be in there, but we've got rid of the images, column 2 and everything. We only have one column, okay? I'm now going to go to the section, the control for it, and I'm going to make this be a boxed width of 500. That means the content within there will not go out of the 500 frame we're setting unless we use some margins to make it slip out, which you can do as well. Now, rather than adding an image into here, we're going to, let me just make this background white, like that. We're going to put an image into here, but we're not going to use the image widget. We're going to click on the column, go to style, background type, and we're going to pick this image here. It's already got some padding at the top, so I can get rid of my padding in my section in a moment. So we're going to drop an image in. Now at the moment, there is nothing there, even though the image is in there. And this is where you've got to go to your widget, and you've just got to drop a spacer in like that. And if I was to now increase that spacer, the image will appear, but I just need to control how big this is first. So let's go to the column. The default for this is center. It will be a scroll. Now, if you were to go with fixed like that, as you scroll up and down, you'll get this parallax effect going on. And if you want that, that's fine. I'm not overly worried. If I'm like, no, actually, no, we'll do it. Let's do it. Let's just see how it looks. Let's go with a fixed. We're going to go with no repeat. And the size for this, if I go for cover, it will now expand it out to start to fill the section in a way, the screen. And if your image is quite small, it will blur out a little bit. So make sure you got the right sized image. I'm going to go for a contain like that. So this is now contained within here. Or you could go with a custom. So this is again where you have a lot more control over your sizing. Now I'm going to go to pixel. And if I increase this to be, we'll go back with what this size we had above. In fact, we'll go with a 400 like that. So we have our image as a 400 like that. Okay, that's looking pretty good for me at the moment. Now the widget space that we had in here is 413. Do you remember we dropped it in over here? And if you forget where you put things in, go down to your navigator. This is section 3. Sorry, no, that's section 3. Because the header was a section as well. Here's your section. You got your column and you got your spacer. If I was to do this to the spacer and drop it down to be 77 pixels, it's going to be pretty tiny. I'm going to make this be 400. Okay. And here's where the effect I'm trying to achieve now isn't going to work very well. So I'm just going to go back to my column. Sorry about this, but I've realized what I'm trying to achieve. You'll see what I mean. I'm going to say make this to be a scrolled effect. So now it is right at the bottom because I want it to connect to another column in a moment. Okay, you'll see what I mean in a moment. I'm going to have another image below, and you can already see the padding here. So let's just get rid of that padding. And I'm going to get rid of it at the bottom as well, because you'll see in a moment, because my images already have spacing, I don't need it. Go to your mobile. Let's do 378, and let's check how is this looking. Ridiculously ridiculous right now, isn't it? I mean, look at the spacing we have here. So let's go over here to the section, and I think we can get rid of the 70 there. In fact, I think we can get rid of the 50 there as well. And we might as well get rid of the bottom, because again, I know what I'm doing here. Now this column, okay, which has the 15 padding because of the section, the image here is a little bit too big. Now, I think we can leave that set at 400 because I want to maintain the size of the image in effect. But if we go to the column, the style, remember the style for the image, the custom width, we have control over how it looks on the mobile. And I would say that the trouble we have here is that if I go with, so we're going to go with 350, okay? Now when I go to my section or my spacer, that 400 height is too much. So if we were to go with 350, that is kind of about right. So because I had a square image in, I can start to work out that, well, if I've got 350 in width, the height is 350 and it sits at the bottom. If you have images that are various sizes, you'll spend a lot of time toing and froing with this. So have a think about what you're doing. So that looks fine for the mobile. Let's go back over here. Let's duplicate this section. Now this image, which is actually in the column, we're going to go over to style, and I'm now going to pick a different image, which will look like this. Now, can you see what I'm doing? Why I got rid of the space? In fact, I don't know why I got this section there. So now I have this it's like a Black Widow effect. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And it's not exactly spot on. That's because of how I created the images. That's my mistake. I should have moved it a little bit over. But we now have like two sections interconnecting with one another, or touching in effect. So this now will maintain the sizes. When I go to mobile now, look, it's got the same widget spacing and it's got the same everything, right? So now everything is kind of in line there. Now, I could have done two images, by the way. And anyone who's used Elementor will say, well, you could have had image one, drop another image in and just done that. Why have you done that in a completely separate section? Well, basically because I want to do this. And I am going to mess around with the spacer in a moment. In fact, I will take the spacer out and you'll see what I mean. I'm going to duplicate this header and I'm going to drag this down, drag, and I'm going to drop it into column 2. I'm now going to get rid of the spacer. And as soon as I do that, my section shrinks. I'm now going to go to the header, put it in the center, okay? I'm going to change the text color to be white. We're going to go to advanced. We're going to go to background. We're going to go for black like that, okay? I could make it a little bit transparent if I want by changing the color so it doesn't have to be fully black like that. I'm now also going to go to positioning and I'm going to say the width of this is custom, okay? Because I don't want it to be the full width of the column. I'm going to go to style and I'm going to drop the size of this to be 2.5. I would say 2.5 works pretty well for me. I'm going to go to content and I'm actually going to just hit a return as well. If you do it in the title like that, you might have to put a breakpoint in for it to completely go on the other line. Or what you do is you just click over here and then do something like that. If you do it within the widget, it will return. If you don't do it within the widget, you go over here and just do breakpoint, okay? Even though we've said center, it's not in the center because this is a custom, let me get this right, custom positioning. I'm going to go to the advanced tab though for the header, and I'm just going to give this a bit of padding because it's a little bit too squashed up, don't you think? So we're going to go 2 and we'll go 10 there like that. If we now go to the column, this is custom positioning, I can click here for as long as I want, and nothing's going to happen, okay? You go to the column, and click on the column, go to layout, and you go to horizontal align, and you then say center. That will now be in the center. The trouble is though, we still cannot see the triangle. So let's go to advanced. And for the header, I'm going to add in about 200 and 200 here. I've done that intentionally just to show you how by adding in padding above and below, the lorem ipsum is now in the middle of the column, but it's not in the middle of the triangle. So we're going to manipulate that a little bit. I'm now just going to start to shrink away the padding at the top there. In fact, I'm going to go with about 140. And that is now, that's kind of in the middle of the triangle. However, we are kind of, we don't have enough spacing over there. So if I just increase here until I get the tip, which is about there. There's the tip, okay? Is that the tip? Yeah, that's about the tip there. So what we now have is a bit of wording going on there, okay, with two interconnecting sections. And I just wanted to show you how you can mess around with spaces, you can mess around with columns, you can have them touching each other, and you can add some wording in, and you can overlap the wording as well. So how does that look on the mobile? Now, you might need to mess around a little bit here because the column 1 for section 4 is fine. Column 2, however, the wording has shrunk because we used the settings from above. Let's go over here. Let's increase this to be, I think 2.2 works better there rather than having it just as 2. Yeah, so for the column, we're now just going to mess around with it. So I've undone it. And I'm going to go with 150 and 150 again. That is now not in the center. We're now going to decrease the top to be about 100. That's more in the center. It's kind of, actually, that's okay, that is. And we're now going to increase the bottom. I think we go with 200. We're now going to increase the bottom to just touch that one as well. You don't have to do what I'm doing. I'm just showing you something that you could do. I'm going to increase this by 120. And drop this one to be 187. Okay, so I've added on 20 to the top and taken 20 off from the bottom, just so we get the effect. And there we go. We've got another section kind of done. Okay, now we're just going to fly through a few other sections. Okay, so I'm now going to add in a banner. I'm now going to copy this section. I'm going to go down here and hit paste. The spacing from the one at the top is a little bit much. Let's get rid of that 60 there. That's okay. We're going to get rid of this image over here. In fact, get rid of that column as well. Get rid of that text, get rid of that text. So everything is in the center. We're going to centralize this, and this now might be a much bigger kind of like header that we're going on for here. I'm just going to do this over here. So we've got a bit more of a statement going on. We go to style. I'm going to make this be white. Okay, don't worry about the colors yet. The typography, I'm going to give this some extra line height. You might want to change your font though, by the way. You know, you might want to have something a bit more dramatic or whatever. Now the background for this is not going to be grey. We're going to go to style. We're going to click over here and I'm going to pick this image here. Okay, this image you cannot properly see at the moment. We're going to come back to that. It's a center image. In fact, I'm going to make it a top center image like that. We're going to make it be a fixed. Fixed means it's fixed, so it parallaxes as you move over. If you do scroll, it moves as you scroll. But if you want to have the parallax effects, it's fixed. Sometimes people go, but fixed isn't fixed. No, it's fixed in terms of the scrolling. The size for this, we're going to make a cover image. Okay, so now it starts to kind of try to fit it within the section. We're going to go to this section, go to advanced, and I'm going to give this a padding of 200 and 200 like that. Okay, so as we scroll now, we get the parallax effect going on there. In fact, I'm going to say this section where I had it as top center, let's put it as center, which doesn't change much because of the amount of padding I've got here. Let's put it as 150 and 150. There we go. So there we go. We're going to have a bit of a section going on there. So let's just view that now. How does that look? I can't scroll because I've got nothing at the bottom. Okay, so that was a bit of a silly move by me. But this is where you can have it in. And remember, you could go over here to your layout and you might say, actually, I want this on this to be like 400 in terms of the framing of it. Or you might say, look, 600 is fine like that, okay? How does it look on the mobile? Remember, because we're just duplicating sections, it makes it easier for us to work with. Now here's where, because we added in a return, a forced return, which you can see here, the wording now looks really odd. And this is where using breakpoints isn't always a good idea on your heading. So let's do that. And I'm going to go over here to this section. Let's go with 270. There we go. So we get a bit of an effect going on there. The image here, though, has a lot more padding than I was intending, and that's because I had some column there. So we've got rid of that. The image looks okay. Let's get rid of the top margin over there. And I think it deserves to have a little bit more padding like that, just so you can see the effect a little bit better there. Let's go back to our desktop. And that is kind of looking okay now. I'm just going to make sure the text hasn't got the breakpoint in, which it hasn't. Check the column. The layout is 600. I'm okay with the layout. Fine, we'll move on to our next section. We're going to duplicate section 3. So I'm going to copy it and just paste that down here. I'm going to get rid of the margin at the top there. Okay, remember, we're just duplicating content. I'm going to swap this over. Sorry, column 2, I'm going to pick up and move over to column 1, like so. I just want to make sure that we have, so the images there are looking okay. The spacing is fine. I could now just change this image and go with another image. So we'll go with this one, like that. And because we've just duplicated and swapped the image in, it maintains the shadow and the boxed effect. And I don't even really have to even go, well, I probably will do. Let's just go to mobile. I said I wouldn't, but we should do. Never dodge it. So here we now go to the new section. We don't need the spacing there. We'll move that away. The padding there is fine. We can get rid of the spacing there. So things are starting to look better. And for this column, we will add in some margin just to move it away. There we go. So that is all looking pretty okay for a very quick test website that we're doing here, okay? All right, things are looking fine there. Let's now go back to our desktop over here. And what we're going to now do is, this is where we could now add in like a banner or a footer, okay? Let me just pick up this. Why did I do that? Let me just pick this section up and dump it in, right? Get rid of this column completely. We have one column, get rid of that. Get rid of that. In fact, I'm going to get rid of that as well. Okay, we're just going to go over here to this column. We're going to go to the section, in fact. We're going to make this be a boxed width of about, I'm going to go with 700, not 7,000, 700. Okay, I'm just going to click over here and say the layout align is a center. It will centralize anyway, don't worry. And I might now pick something like the icon list, maybe. Put something like that in. I'm going to get rid of all of these items over here. I'm going to get rid of the icon, or I could click over here and pick an icon, type what you want and pick it. I'm going to get rid of the icon, and I'm going to call this Vulcan. To be honest, the best way to do it, and again, I've got better tutorials on this, is, you might use a header, and then you might use subheaders or text for different items in your footer. I'm just showing you a really quick, easy way of doing it. I'm going to have Vulcan. I'm just going to copy this one, and I'm going to change this to say, I don't know, copyright. You could stick your symbol in as well. All rights reserved kind of thing. All rights reserved. I can't even spell. All rights reserved like that. I'm just going to duplicate that one as well. Designed by Web Squadron. You're going to do stuff like that, okay? I mean, I could go over here and I'm going to just type in strong. And I'm just going to put the backslash as well. It's always good practice to close things off, okay? So I got Vulcan, okay? Your sizing and all of that. I'm just going to go to the style, make this be central aligned, go to the text. go to your typography, you know the drill here, REM, and I'm going to go with 1.5, for instance. 1.5 is too big. Let's go with 1.1. We'll go with 1, okay? And then you can also go with your list, and you can do your space between as well. And this is where you could use the icon. If you don't want to use headers and text, you know, dropping lots of text in and giving and identifying each one by one, you could use the icon list, and then underneath here you might have like privacy policy, cookies policy, terms and conditions, or if you're selling anything, another menu in there, social sharing icons. You know, if you want to do that, you're going to go here, obviously, you're going to type in social sharing icons, and you could drop that into your footer as well. Center aligned, we could have that, I'm going to say 3 columns, circularize it, make it a circle, you know, spacing a bit better. I would say shrink the size down a bit. You don't want to have it too majorly in your face. We're going to go with a custom color, and I'm going to say that the secondary color is that red color. No, sorry, got it the wrong way around. I always do this. White is your secondary color, and your primary color will be this one here. And you can create a hover color as well. Don't forget, you know, when you go over it. So when you hover over it, you might now say your primary color goes to a dark color like that. Okay, so you can do stuff like that, do your spacing, etc. Okay, I'm not trying to kind of, I'm not spending a lot of time on this bit, if that's okay. Right, this column does have a right margin. We're going to get rid of that. In fact, we're going to go to this text over here, the text, and we're going to make this be white text, and we're going to make the section be completely dark with the styling. No, we'll go with the text like that. There we go. So we've got a bit of a styling going on there. And look, I could have done tons more sections. Just duplicate, rearrange it. You could take this out if you want and drop in a video, right? You could even have a video and an image in there, right? Get rid of that. You've got a video playing. You then link that to a YouTube URL, or you have a self-hosted video that you've put onto your media library. Make sure your video is not too big, because you will regret it, trust me. So there's stuff like this you could do, okay? Right, so very quickly, let's just double check how this looks on the mobile. So let's just scroll down, and that's looking fine, okay? Even though I did reset a few things, it still maintained the margin and the padding inside the section. So it looks like it hasn't got it, but it has got it there. So, you know, if you want to maneuver, and I mean, I would probably say on the mobile, you might want to give this bit of breathing space of about 40, just to space it out a bit. And over here, I would probably say, yeah, again, give it a bit of breathing space, 40, something like that. So it's not too close kind of thing, okay? Now, we've kind of done all that. But what if you wanted to have a scroll effect, which we have not covered off yet? So this is a one-page website, and I can scroll. But what if I want to jump to this section and this section? So let's call this section, okay, we're just going to change the title of this. Okay, go to content, and I'm going to call this Cobb. I can't even spell. Content. And we're going to go to the next section down here, and I'm going to call this one Other. Now, what we're going to do to each of these sections is we're going to drop in a little bit of an anchor. So we go to Widget, or your widgets, and we type in anchor, and I'm going to get a menu anchor, and I'm going to drop this menu anchor in. This is where you have to think about now where you want the placement to be. I'm going to drop it in there, and I'm going to call this one content. If you use capitals, remember that you used capitals. Otherwise, it just won't work and it look rubbish. But this one is called content. And I'm going to go down to this one over here, and I'm going to type in anchor. If you videos, got videos on it if you're unsure. And I'm going to type in other. So if this was services, you call it services. Or you might give it services, whatever. But give it a clear name. Okay, so we now have other, and we have content. Now, bear in mind though that when you click on this, it is going to jump down to this part here and you won't have the padding here. If you're okay with that, fine. If not, there is a video I did on how to offset the menu anchors by dropping in a bit of code. I'm not going to go into that because I want you just to kind of keep it clean and easy for everyone here. Now, this page, did we name this page? We did, didn't we? Yes, we called it Vulkan page, okay? Let me just update this and let us now just preview this page. Okay, this is our page. So if I was to now go over here and just pick up that, which I don't, you can't see it on the screen, so sorry about that, but I've picked up the URL. So it's the URL of this website, /Vulkan page, okay, because it's called the Vulkan page. Right, we're going to stick in a menu system that's going to take us down to that, so it's going to scroll. One of the most common ways to do it is you add buttons in, or an icon list in, or whatever you want. So like, if I go down to here, this is an icon list, right? The content. I could stick in a URL. So I could stick in service, I could have home, services, whatever. And you click it and it takes you to it. But the trouble with doing that effect is you then have to create a completely separate menu system. What I'm going to do is do it all in one go, okay? So we'll have our menu anchors, our scrolling menu in effect, and we'll have the navigation bar which works on the mobile. Now we should really, because I haven't done it yet, add in a menu anchor for the home page as well. So I'm going to go to over here and I'm going to go and get a anchor like so, and I'm actually going to drop it below the logo. I'm going to go to this column and say give it 0 spacing so everything is back to normal. So there's no spacing. Go back to my top section, go to the anchor, and I'm going to call this one home, like that. I mean, it's a bit weird, isn't it, when you have like one home page and you hit home and it takes you to the top, but you don't really want to put the word top either. So we're just going to call it home. So I have my URL and we've got home, content, and other. So we're in WordPress now, and we're going to go down to appearance and menus. We're going to create a new menu, okay? So we're going to do create new menu. And we're going to call this menu Vulkan, just because it's easy, because this is a test website. I've got menus galore everywhere on here. I'm going to click create menu, okay? Now, we're not going to pick any pages from it. I mean, we could, in effect, click the Vulkan page here for the home. I could do that, but I'm not going to do that, okay? What I'm going to do is go to custom links, and I'm going to paste here the URL for the Vulkan page. I'm then going to do / / whatever you want to call it. I'm then going to type hashtag home in lowercase, because it was in lowercase. Hashtag home. And the title for this will be home. Let's add that to the menu. Let's now do another one. Let's paste again, / hashtag content. And I'm going to call this content. We now add that. Let's do it again one last time. And we're going to call it / hashtag other. And we're going to call it other and add to menu. I've now created a menu without using buttons or icon lists or anything else for my menu anchors. And if you click, it's got the addressing. Look, it's there. Let's now save that menu. Let's now go back to our Vulkan page. Now in our header, we've only got an image and a menu anchor. We're now going to drop in a menu. And we're going to drop in the nav menu. I drop it in and there it goes. We get all Elementor websites designs because it's picking up the wrong menu. Let's go to here and pick Vulkan. We get home, content, other. Let's have it right aligned. I'm going to get rid of the pointer. There we go, nothing over there. I don't want to mess around too much with the styling, okay? Okay, we'll do a little bit because I can hear you shouting at me right now going, get on with it. We're going to have a really light, thin styling over there. I'm going to make the REM for this to be 1.2, like that. The color will be the black color. The hover will actually make the red color like that. And when it is active, it will just be the dark color. So you're going to get that effect going on there. You could add in social sharing icons at the top, phone numbers, extra stuff like that. And again, I got much more detailed videos on headers that you should go and check out. So we're going to add in our menu there. Now here's the really, really cool bit, okay? If we go to mobile mode like that, and we now go to 378, okay, we now have the bars. You would not have that with the icon list or the buttons, and then you would end up creating another menu, but we're doing it once to cover off all our bases. We're going to go over here to the style for the toggle button, and I'm going to say the background color is white and the color of the button is black, and when you hover over it, it is still going to be black and the background color is white. You could make it red if you want to fit with the color scheme, but I don't want to overdo it with the redness here. Now the one problem we do have, okay, is on the desktop it looks fine. On the mobile though, the bar is underneath the logo. So I'm going to go to this column that's got the logo and I'm going to say make this be 75% in width. And this column, make it 25%. And look what we get. It is all on one line now, which is exactly the effect we want. I would say though, it's not always dead on center. So you might just want to go in and do your vertical lines just to make sure everything is centralized. And I find that sometimes even by doing that, it's not perfectly centered, which is annoying for me. I never fully understand why it does that. Can you see that? It's not perfectly centered. What you might want to do at this point is just go in and make sure there is no margin or padding and then just drop down. I would say go down 5 and take off 5 at the bottom. It's going to go back to our section, which is right at the top with no margin or padding, but it's got padding inside. We're going to go to the style and you instead have like a shadow effect, and you might not want the shadow to be so blatantly in your face. So I'll go 2 there. So that's not looking too good either. So if we go for about 5, you'll have a little bit of a shadow effect. So the header looks like it's a little bit 3D coming out at you. And when you look at this in a mobile, as what we're doing right now, again, you've got that slight 3D effect going on there. By the way, whatever styling you do for your menu in terms of typography and background color, make sure you do replicate that for your drop down as well. Otherwise, it won't look the same. Okay, and you will also notice it's gone and done that. It looks really, really odd. The remedy for that is so simple. It's so easy, and you kind of should be doing this before you do anything when you do your menu. Is you go to content, and where we have mobile drop down, it says full width, like that. So if I now click this, it is going to be full width. So our image has slid in, or faded in, or zoomed in. And you can see what we have here, okay? We got our sections. You could have some, and I'm just showing you another way of how you don't have to just be image, text. You can break it up a little bit. We didn't have a hero banner full width right at the top. Strong text, strong image is just as powerful. You don't have to do a full width one, okay? And I think this is a good image, but I think you'll agree that is better what we have at the moment up there. And we've got some text down here, and we've got our footer with social sharing icons. So this is all pretty easy and simple to do. But what about when we start to hit these buttons? Well, if I hit content, I go to content. Can you see here how it's at the top? There's no offset. We did do a video a week ago. Go look for it. Offsetting, how you can add in some extra padding like 50 or 100 pixels so it doesn't all the way go right to the top of the header there. You go to other, you got your other down there. Now when we go to home, it doesn't go to the top. It's because it's a sticky header there. So this is where I made a bit of a mistake. I'm going to take the home one out of here and stick it up to here. So our menu anchor that we have here, I'm just going to pick that up and I'm actually going to drop it over here like so. So it's now above that there. In fact, I'm going to take it over and stick it up here. There we go. I've stuck it above the image, okay? Let's update that. So let's go down to other. And now when we hit home, it goes to the top. That was my fault. I forgot because it was a sticky header. If it's not a sticky header, it would have been fine. But because it was, the header's always visible on the screen. My mistake, sorry. So just remember, put it in your section or below it, in fact, and that'll be fine. But look, that is a really simple scrolling. And I'm just doing it here now, look. And because we've got it as a mobile, if I now shrink this section up, This is in a private window, by the way. It doesn't look exactly correct because I've just shrunk my browser screen, but if you did it in a proper mobile view, you would be totally fine. But we have the mobile over here, okay? I hope this has helped you with just kind of building websites and how easy it is to do on Elementor. There is so much more to learn, so many more videos we've got. I hope you like, subscribe, share, and follow, and I'll see you soon.